Good morning, everyone. Today is May 13th, and we are here live with Jessica Alejandro, LMFT, and a lot of other credentials that I'm so excited to speak about today. Her and I had a conversation with back in like April on your platform, and it was such a great conversation. And of course, I had to have her on my platform so that way we can talk about all the wonderful things that she does outside of talk therapy for May Mental Health Awareness Month. How are you doing today, Jessica?
I'm well. I'm so happy and excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. So we are live on Facebook and on Instagram. And I thank you all for joining us here today. And even if you're hitting that replay button, definitely comment, ask questions, be part of the conversation today. And of course, at the end of it, there will be contact information for you guys to reach out to Jessica. But why don't we get started, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to introduce Jessica and all the wonderful things that she's doing. So she is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a shamanic Reiki master teacher, a sound healer, crystal dreaming practitioner and teacher, and retreat leader. Jessica has over 26 years of experience working in the social services field. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Temple University in Philadelphia and a master's in marriage and family therapy from Central Connecticut State University. She has worked as a trained and experienced forensic interviewer, crisis clinician, and couples and family therapist. She started her career as a social worker at DCF and then moved on to work to Greater Hartford Children's Advocacy Center at St. Francis Hospital. Gaining even more experience in the field, she also worked at Wellmore Behavioral Health Emergency Mobile Psychiatric Services as a crisis clinician. Her last traditional 9 to 5 job was in the corporate world at Beacon Health Options, monitoring and improving mental health services for Medicaid. Jessica started working in private practice part-time 12 years ago at Center for Relationship Healing in Norwich and Dr. Tracy and Associates in Glastonbury. In 2016, she started her own independent private practice in Middlefield. She specializes in combining psychotherapy and energy work to help accelerate healing for her clients. Her focus on working with individuals experiencing grief and loss, trauma, depression, anxiety, and life transitions, as well as couples looking for deeper connection with each other and premarital couples. Always being a spiritual and intuitive person, she fully stepped out of the spiritual closet about 10 years ago. Ever since then, her life's work and purpose became crystal clear. She always knew she wanted to help people. That's why she became a therapist. She did not realize that she would also become a way shower and conduit for others to connect to their higher selves, discover their inner light, truly love themselves, and share the love with the world. Helping others see the true answer to healing. Love is her mission and passion. Now, if that didn't like want to pull you in and sit down in this conversation, then I don't know what, because it's so inspiring, even to a fellow LMFT, right? And somebody who does Reiki and is just seeing even in that bio the where you went with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about it. Like you have like this big repertoire, this resume of all these different experiences and things that you went to, and it led you here. Now, was
Mm-hmm.
that energy talking to you, like helping guide you to all that?
It's funny. Yeah. The short answer is yes. And when I think back about my journey, because like you said, I do something similar to this and I talk to people about their journey. So I think about mine all the time. And it's just like, I always tell people I was that kid. I was the kid that was outside playing. Like I'm one of five. I'm the youngest of five women. So
Mhm.
they were kind of grew up to, they were very close in age and I was kind of 5 years apart from the youngest. So I was always, I grew up I'm a generation X latchkey
Mhm.
kid, whatever, that whole thing. So I enjoyed spending time alone, or I learned to enjoy spend time alone. So I was always that kid outside playing with the worms, the whatever, like just out in the rain. Whenever it rained, I would run outside and just play in the rain. So I always had that, I always felt things. I always, there was always some kind of sensitivity. And then, life takes over and
Mhm.
you get into being a teenager and, trying to fit in and doing all those things. And that kind of falls to the wayside. But then as you know, when you have a calling, it just keeps nagging at you, right? So I always knew I was going to be a helper. I always knew I was going to be some kind of a healer, but I always thought traditional, right? Like I wanted to be a pediatrician and then I wanted to be a lawyer. And then and then being a therapist just kind of was the natural thing because that's the way it was in my life. People always came up to me like perfect strangers. If I made eye contact, they'd be like just telling me their life story, which I'm sure you can probably relate to. It was just like people felt comfortable talking to me about their stuff. So naturally, I love psychology, and I just kind of went in that. And I talk about following the breadcrumbs all the time, and I kept following the breadcrumbs, and my sensitivities kept coming back,
Mhm.
and they helped, with the different jobs that I did, and sometimes they hindered with the different jobs that I did. Like when I was a
Mhm.
forensic interviewer, my sensitivities were a little too much for that. So I did that for 5.5 years, but then really had to recognize when it was burnout
Mhm.
time and time to just be done. So as soon like working through all those jobs, it just kept adding and adding and giving me that sense of like, okay, there's more out here. And in
Yeah.
2011, 2012 is when I first got certified with Reiki level 1,
Mhm.
and just something changed, as I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like once you get attuned to that first level of Reiki, just things just start to open up. You start to become all the sensitivities that you had naturally just really start to unravel and come back. And then there were some things with relationships and some things that just kind of catapulted me into like, okay, it's time to really step back into this spiritual journey
Mhm.
and do it seriously because this is what you're meant to do.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, there's so I'm also practicing to be a real estate agent. And sometimes when I go into houses, I'm like, that's really like I went into a house, it was a historical home. It's built
Mhm.
in 1700s, and it like punched me in my chest, literally.
Mhm.
And I'm telling my husband, like, ow, you don't feel that? It hurts. And it wasn't until I walked out the house that I started coughing. It was like coughing. And he's just like, I don't feel anything. And I'm just like, it hurt. And I was like texting my sisters, and I'm like, this really hurt me. Like, and so some people in our family might have other sensitivities just as well. But I think when I say that, like, people might be like, what are you talking about? And even more so, like, I'm learning that there are certain things that I told my husband. I was like, I love colonial homes so much that I really think in a past life I must have owned one. I was in something
Mhm.
happened, which I'm
Yep.
so interested to learn about myself and my past life regressions. I really am. I want to get myself there, but I'm almost afraid to. But we actually went on a Manchester Historical Society walk this weekend,
Mm.
and they're showing us all these things, and there's something where I feel really connected to. And I'm like, I really want to find out. And I don't know if that's just me or if there's something in me that's saying, Medi, like, you're connected somehow.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Worth exploring for sure because obviously there's something there.
yeah, yeah. So you and I were just talking just right before here, and we were talking about how you just led a retreat this weekend.
Mhm.
And it was
Mhm.
on the mother wound. And I know, like, people are like, what is that, right? So we want to talk about things that are outside of talk therapy,
Mhm.
because people know what talk therapy is, and it's either if you're afraid of it, you don't want to get into the talk therapy part, or people are like, let's dive into it because I want to heal.
Right.
There are other modalities to healing just as well, and you never know what avenue that might awaken within yourself, and it might lead you back to talk therapy, or you feel more connected with other things.
Right.
So tell us, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more about like the spiritual part of things, what you do, even the retreat that you had, because you did say that there was one that's going to be coming up later in the fall. Like, tell us about what you do.
So So like, like I was saying before, in 2012 I just kind of had this big catapult. Like I did have an astral projection dream, and that's when
Mhm.
I needed to start traveling by myself, doing solo trips outside of the country. And it was just this very, what people may call like a midlife crisis, but that's what the secular, the society calls it, but it's really was my deeper spiritual awakening. It was like, I had this awakening, as a kid, and then it went dormant. And then it just, as an adult, this was like, okay, no, now you need to do this. Right. So I started, I already, at that point I was at the group practice, and my work with people just started changing. I've always been a therapist that's been more of a coach
Mhm.
style therapist, meeting the person where they're at and really like giving people, suggestions. It's a very interactive process for me, right? And then opening myself up to Reiki just opened up that channel.
Mhm.
And I was starting to tell people like, stuff that was coming through me, and not like people would be like, can you repeat that? And I'm like, no, I can't, because I don't know what I just said, so that it really just started to evolve in that way. And then I started diving into my spiritual practice even deeper. I mean, what really catapulted me into that, because sometimes when you say something and you don't do it right away, the universe will kick you in the ass and be like, no, you need to do this because you said it. So I had said at the last job that I was in that I was going to start my own practice, and I was going to focus more on spiritual work and all that stuff. And I had said that like 2 years before I actually got fired from my job. So being
Mhm.
fired from this job, and it was like this whole contract, all the people who were hired were kind of shuffled around and whatever.
Mhm.
It was a whole big thing. This is what happens in corporate.
Right.
And that really like set me into this rock bottom space where I had my very first panic attack and all this stuff. And I was just like, nope, picked myself up, dusted myself off. And I said, no, this is an opportunity. And this is the universe kicking me in the ass. And this is what I need to do. So I started my private practice, and then really maybe like 3 or 4 years in, right? Because when you start private practice, you're like, I'm just going to take everybody. I'm just going to whatever. You don't really know, even though
Right.
I had already been working with couples. So I had that niche, and
Mhm.
I loved doing it until the pandemic. And then I stopped loving working with couples. But
And then that's when I started, because I felt like I had all the couples.
right, right. I was like, they all came to you. But and then as I started working on my spiritual journey, like one of the things that I did after I got fired in the summertime, which was a blessing, and
Mhm.
I had one of my clients had told me about the magic. So Burns, her last name is Burns. She wrote The Secret. So the woman who wrote The Secret has this
Mhm.
other book, The Magic, and the something else. So the magic is like a 20 something day challenge where you do these certain things every single day. So I would go to the beach every day and do these challenges, and it just opened up so much, right? And I was just like, okay, and all these ideas just started to come. And but as time evolved, I was scared to kind of insert, even though my Psychology Today profile was always written to say I do energy work, I do this, I do that, because those are the people that I wanted to attract. I wanted to attract people who are on the verge of their spiritual awakening but don't understand what that is.
Mhm.
They're feeling a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of things, a lot of nudges, and a lot of kind of this, I don't know, this anxiety, this pull, this, but they don't know what it
Mhm.
is and how to guide them. So that's those were the people who I was trying to attract. So the more I attracted these people, the more people came to me knowing that I do energy work, and that's why they came, and that they kept saying that. I then felt better to start evolving my practice and putting in all of the things that I had been certified in, the shamanic Reiki, the crystal dreaming, the sound healing, all that stuff, and really starting to incorporate it. I was already incorporating kind of the channeling and the energy, then
Mhm.
the sensing and all that stuff, but to really start to incorporate those modalities. So now what I do is I offer people, if they're able to, I offer them 2 hour sessions where, if they want to use their insurance for the first hour, we do psychotherapy the first hour, and then we do energy work around the psychotherapy the second hour. So I have
Mhm.
a handful of clients who like working that way. I just think it's better. It accelerates healing much faster. It does all these things. So that's kind of the psychotherapy evolution piece of my
Mhm.
business, and that's really starting to shift a lot more. I started doing retreats in 2019.
Mhm.
Ironically enough, I started working with a spiritual coach in 2018 to help me build online courses, but for some reason it just evolved into retreats. And I had gone to my very first personal retreat, because I had been to work retreats, but my very first personal retreat in 2018, Rebecca Campbell, who was one of the people who really got me through this transition in my life. She's a divine feminine author, she does a lot of meditations and whatever. She's based out of London, but one of my clients introduced me to her, and I was like, this is exactly what I need. And yeah, I just started kind of digging into a lot of divine feminine work, went to her retreat, and from that it just evolved. And I started doing day-long retreats first, and it was really focused on, they were called permission granted first, so giving yourself permission to, so it was a self-love retreat. And the more that I worked in my shamanic Reiki program, then all that evolved into ancestral healing. But it's all very interconnected, right? So this past weekend when I did the Healing the Mother Wound retreat, yes, we were working with the ancestors and also working with our inner child and talking about self-love, and how that heals the mother wound, what you did not receive from your mother. Again, the mother wound is not just about our mothers. It is there's a societal piece to that too. And our mothers, have these issues within themselves as being mothers because of this patriarchy wound that gets created within them. So with all that said, what I started to see when I started doing these retreats is the power in group healing, right? I don't like doing group counseling. I don't like doing group therapy, but to do a retreat where you see people come in very tentative, very scared, very tight, and by the end of it, they're just laughing and enjoying themselves and loving everything that's happening just in 24 hours sometimes, to see that transition and to see people really release stuff is magical, like truly, truly magical. So that's why I love doing the retreats. I feel like I'm pushing to do more of these because, again, it's accelerated healing in a short period of time in a group of people, and we are social beings. So I love doing therapy one-on-one, but I love facilitating retreats because the magic is in the group, and there's so much diversity in my retreats. I have people I have men and women attend retreats. There was one man at this one, and from women in their 20s all the way to their 70s, all races, from all backgrounds, from all parts of the country. It's beautiful to watch and to see the transition and to see how everybody's multi-generationally is helping each other in that room, become better.
I love that. And I definitely can, I resonate with that as far as like when you're doing a retreat, even some of the monthly workshops I do with women, and we're focusing on self-love and different aspects to it. There's like this sense of connectedness and empowerment that people get when they're with other people. It's almost like, oh, I'm not in this alone. Okay, we're going through this journey together. And there's no bias, there's no judgment. It's more fulfilling sometimes that way. So I love that you're doing this, and then again focusing on like certain aspects, the mother wound. And you said you have one coming up in the fall as well, right?
Yeah, so it's the same one, healing the mother wound, but it's going to be a full weekend in Row, Mass. So Row Camp and Conference Center up in Row, Mass. That's going to be the first weekend in October, right? Whatever that is, October 2nd to the 4th or 3rd through the 5th. I think it's 2nd to the 4th. And this was cut short because it was Mother's Day weekend.
Right.
And it was perfect because a lot of people who were there, had mothers pass and they wanted to do something for themselves, but it was, like I said, it was cut short. There were so many more things that I wanted to do, and that'll be possible hopefully in October. But it was beautiful. It was magical. Everybody was just so they were touched, and you could see the transition. You can see the healing, and you could see them softening, from seeing their mothers in a different light. It was just. It was a beautiful, beautiful space. Yeah. So I work a lot with the ancestral space, just because when I started doing my shamanic Reiki program, that's where I was led. I mean, if I look at my Mayan sign, my Mayan cosmology sign, it is very much about that. It is about working with the ancestors and that kind of thing. So it just a natural progression. When you look at all these things, like, you look at your sun sign or whatever, and it all just makes sense. And if you don't follow those breadcrumbs, as you know,
Mhm.
you're going to get there eventually, either the hard way or the easy way. So,
Right. I try to tell people all the time, allow you follow your energy, allow it to like
right.
bring you to where you maybe you're destined to be, and a lot and when you're feeling resistance and this force and stuff like that, like
Mhm.
don't resist it.
That's
But a
right.
lot of again, we tend to be afraid, fear kind of kicks in, and we want to be able to control the situation, so we're just like, no, 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 I want to do this, but energy might say you're going somewhere else.
That's
So
right.
whether you do it now or later, and universe is going to kick you out of wherever you do not belong.
Damn right.
Tell us a little bit about the crystal dreaming, because
Okay.
that I know when in talk therapy, a lot of my clients will ask me, like, I had this dream and da da da, and I'm just like, I don't do that stuff, so I have no
I know.
idea. So, can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
Right. So the name is a little misleading. So it's not
Mm,
about analyzing dreams.
okay.
It's called crystal dreaming because you get put into an altered state of consciousness.
Mm,
So it's not hypnosis either. You're
mhm,
fully present in your body at all times. It's you really have to experience it because each experience is different. So it's really hard to explain what it is, but I can explain the mechanics of it where basically you as the client are lying inside of a crystal mandala of very specific crystals, mainly crystal quartz, purple fluorite, selenite, those kinds of crystals. And me as a practitioner will guide you through some relaxation exercises. We do a body scan, and then we go into, after the body scan, whatever we identify in the body, we'll say, okay, body, take me to the place where this take me to the time where this ache in my shoulder first started, take me there now. And
mhm,
then you go into this space. So the experience could be present life experience, going back into these memories. It could be past life experience where you go back into past lives to figure out where this is coming from. Or it, yeah, it's really profound. It's
mhm,
I don't want to like set it up for people and they'll be like, oh, and they'll come and expect something, but it really is, the experience is what you allow it to be, right? So I always
mhm,
tell people, the way that you have no expectations, relax out of trying to control the experience, the more
mhm.
profound the experience will be, but it really is designed to help go in and access present life or past life traumas and really desensitize yourself from them so that it's not something that's impacting you so severely in your present day.
Mhm. Nice. So, what's interesting about our talk that I think that it's interesting that since I started the lives in the beginning of May, right? We're
Mhm.
like mid-May now. Um, with each person who has been on a live is like progressing as far as the different modalities, but getting us here to this point where it's like we're talking about deeper work, right?
Mhm.
Talk therapy a lot of times is some surface level. We're talking about your past traumas and things like that, but now we're talking about really getting it more in tune to your
Mhm.
soul and that energy healing part of it. So
Right.
it's interesting to me, having, of course, hosted and facilitated all these lives. I'm like, wow, it's interesting that it gets us here and we're digging just a little bit deeper.
Mhm.
And um, what would you say to people that might be in the audience now listening? Because you are LMFT, and so you have experience in that as well as doing the deeper work.
Mhm.
What would you say as to someone who is looking to do more of that work but might be scared to do it, or like, no, no, like that's not for me? What would you say anything to them?
Well, I understand people's fear of the unknown. I totally get that. I have a couple of my sisters who are like, I'll take out an oracle card deck, and they're like, they're like, I don't know about that. What my older sister in particular, but and I have some friends that are like that too. But it's like, what I would say to them is, try it. If it's not for you, nothing that I do, nothing that any of us do in energy work is well, coming from who we are as people, right? Because
Right.
there's other people who will do energy work and use it for their own,
Hmm.
you know. everything that I do always comes from a place of healing and love, and of unconditional healing and love for that person. So it's always done in a safe container. I don't convince people to do things that they don't feel comfortable with, but I will say, hey, let's try it and see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel good to you, then that's fine. We don't have to do any of that. But I always just let the person, give them the information and let the person decide. And oftentimes, because of who you are, because of who I am, they'll be like, okay, I'll try. Because we make them feel safe in those spaces, they're more willing to try it. And then if it's not for them, it's not for them. But what I do say is, talk therapy only takes you so far. When you go deeper into the psyche, deeper into connecting with your higher self, deeper into, going into those places where we're scared to look, that's when true healing happens. And I always tell them, there's nothing scary in there. There's nothing bad about you. There's nothing scary in there. It may seem scary, but once we go in there and look at it, it'll be fine, because you're safe here in this space, in this present moment. So safety and comfort is really what I try to provide for people to, and if they don't want to do it, like I always say, I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to convince you. I tell you what I believe. You don't have to believe that. Find what works for you. That's how I always approach people. And I may recommend a book or this or that, but whatever comes to you directly, that's what's meant for you.
Nice. I love it. And sound healing. For people who have not done sound healing before, how would you introduce the sound healing?
So the sound healing, that's another thing where it's like, you don't even understand how profound sound healing can be, because it goes into the energetic body. And we can talk about stuff, but if we don't remove it from the aura, from the energetic, from the electromagnetic field around our heart and around our bodies, then it's still lingering, right? You can talk about it, you can whatever, but it's still going to be there. So what sound does, so I do individual sound healings, but I also do the group sound healing circles at the end of every month at Evolution Yoga in Newington. And what sound does is disrupts all of the let's say negative vibrational things that are in you, right? So fear, jealousy, all those negative emotions carry negative vibrations. And I hate to use the word negative, but we live in a dual society.
Right. In my head, I'm like, I hate talking about the negative energy we're trying to push out. Like,
I know it's annoying, but these are the words, right? So whatever these things are that are just not serving you anymore, the sound helps break that up. Because we are beings of vibration and sound ourselves. We are molecules. We are, neurons and all that stuff vibrating to make us a solid mass. So when other things around us, like all the 5G energy, all the stuff is around us and it's making it toxic for us, the sound helps break all of that up. So some people will be like, oh, I felt a heaviness, or I felt, some like lifting off of me, or I felt, people feel different sensations every time they go to a sound healing. And it could be a different experience every single time you go to a sound healing, because the sounds aren't always the same. So people always ask me, you'll find some sound healers who are very much into the science, very much into the technology, will tell you what kind of hertz this bowl has and why, and blah, blah. I'm not that sound healer. I'm a more spiritually based sound healer, where it's like, I just allow spirit to lead me to what sounds need to be put in for that specific group or that specific person. So it's very much like when you do Reiki, you just let spirit guide, let the energy guide you. So that is, sound is profound for so many people. So many people have such profound. So I use, meditation and sound together. So I put them in a relaxed state, and then we do the sound, always set an intention, do the sound, and then come out of it. We do pull an oracle card and all that stuff. And people just have really full circle, experiences where it's like, oh, this is what I felt during the sound. And then they look at the card and it's like, oh my God, this is exactly it. So it's just energetically aligned for the right moment and for the group, so.
Yeah. So you integrate a lot of what you do sometimes into a session. That's great. That's great. Now, do you still do talk therapy?
Yeah. I still do talk therapy. So not all, it's very rare that I will do. So I don't integrate. So I don't integrate formal Reiki. I don't integrate formal sound into a session. So if people want to do more of the energy work, then that's separate. So that will fall in line with like a client who wants to work with me for 2 hours to do psychotherapy and then do a session, uh, energy healing session. A regular psychotherapy 1 hour session, we may do mindfulness, we may do some meditation, we may go back and do, a past life thing, whatever is allotted in that hour of time. But most of my hour-long sessions are, talk therapy. Like I said, we may do some breathing, we may do, just to kind of help with the process. But what I would describe like doing an individual sound or whatever, it would be more working with the clients who are doing 2 hours, or if they just want to do strictly energy work, because we're restricted with that, right? You can't,
Right.
can't bill for energy work. So
Right.
and in order for a person to get a full experience, it's nice for them to just book a separate, because a Reiki session could be an hour, it could be an hour and a half. It really depends, could be 2 hours,
Right.
So yeah, same with sound.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, I love it. I love everything that you're doing. And again, I can definitely like on some levels, I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. So I encourage people to try different things, really try
Mm-hmm.
something else other than especially if you're already feeling like I need more. And sometimes we do need more of that work, right? And
Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to be open to all the things that are out there in this world, because there's lots of things that providers are doing
That's
that
right.
can help heal you in different ways.
Yep.
And there's always going to be fear that can definitely be in that conscious subconscious part of you, but don't allow the fear to block you from that next step or that next level in your life.
Yeah,
Because when you're able to kind of just drive, even if you hold fear's hand and it's just like, let's walk through this together, walk through it with fear, right?
that's right.
That is okay, because that's what a lot of us do. We walk with it with
Mm-hmm.
fear, but we just keep on pushing through, and we realize, okay, well, thank you for alerting me, or for at least wanting to protect me, right? But
Right.
this is something that we feel called to do and moving forward. So
Yeah.
again, I appreciate you coming on here and introducing us to all the wonderful things that you're doing. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yep. Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Facebook, Jessica Alejandro. I use my personal page as kind of my business page too, but I also have a business page, the number 4, Whole Heart Healing on Facebook, and same thing on IG. Instagram is the number 4, Whole Heart Healing. I just started TikTok, which I was so against, but I'm on TikTok now. And, and my website is www.the4wholehearthealing.com, and my spiritual website is jessicaalejandrolmft.org. And you can always just email me at the number 4wholehearthealing@gmail.com. I have all kinds of events. I have an event coming up in a summer solstice event with my friend Latia Holly, the tea goddess, and we're doing that in Portland. So it's a sip and sound, and we're going to be doing a tea ceremony and breath work and sound, and we're going to be making an anointing oil. So it's going to be a beautiful experience. So reach out if you have any questions, want to book a session, whatever. And everybody needs a healing team, right? Not just, and you need to question, right? You need to question things and not just stand for one opinion. We need a team. Like I have a naturopath, I have a regular doctor, I have my teacher who does my healing, the healing. So we all need additional things. One thing isn't enough for the complicated world that we live in for healing.
Yeah. And there's a reason why I titled this like Whole Heart Healing, because even though it's your business name, it really, to me, it was like, no, this is what this segment really is about, is like that whole heart healing, just being able to connect and in yourself and really healing those all different aspects of yourself, really. So
Yeah.
I thank you for coming on here today. Is there any last message that you want to send out to people?
really just take care of you. Know that there's nothing inherently wrong with you. Your circumstances may have put you in a place where you're not feeling so great about yourself or feeling like you're stuck or whatever, but everybody has a purpose. Everybody is here for a reason. You just have to allow yourself to see it. It doesn't have to be a grandiose thing. It could be something small but mighty. So just allow yourself to get the healing that you need in order to do what you came here to do.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on today. This is Mary Ann from Transforming Hearts PLLC. We really thank you for being part of May Mental Health Awareness Month. Keep doing the great work that you're doing.
You too.
And for all the audience, we'll see you soon.